Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the weekly wave. We're going to go ahead and get started. And just so you know, it's going to kind of be a repeat of the last couple of weeks because we still have the same reports that are open currently. So first thing I want to talk about is the ASR. Keep in mind this closes on July 1st of 2022. Check your calendars for parent-teacher days, professional days, snow days, and holidays. Also, please check your transportation numbers. They can be found in the student view section. And you also want to make sure that that kids that show up in missing student section, that they actually aren't part of your membership. So if you have kids that are there, then you need to resolve whatever issue is being created, and it'll identify it in the missing students section. Also, Alt Ed, please review your student list to make sure they're correct. You will see an online screen data entry if you need to make corrections that are there. But if you have students that are missing, please reach out to us so we can kind of direct you on what you need to do. So you can either reach out at studentdatainfo at osde.ok.gov, or you can contact the state aid department. We do have the instructions for the online data entry for your Alt-Ed. They have been posted. There is a notes section, and when you make a note, it's going to email state aid just right away. So know that that's available as well. You can contact state aid at state.aid@sde.ok.gov. Or you can contact Lori at 405-522-0139 or Mitzi at 405-522-0120. Lori, do you want to add anything additional to this?
I don't think I have anything. I mean, I'm just going to stress, let's try to start looking at that alternative ed data now, just because it's new, the way things are going with it, and we can probably get a head start on it. And we have 5 people who've certified their ASR, those people who get out of school early. But I think everything so far is going good.
Okay, thanks.
Nancy, I just have one quick thing. If you're already out of school and you're working your data and transportation, if you're just off on a few people, just call us and we'll open on-screen data entry, and you can manually correct it, and you can be done the same day instead of having to wait for it to update.
That sounds great. Thank you, Mitzi. Okay, chronic absenteeism medical exemptions. So you must have a district admin user before students' absent records can be amended. You'll need to fill out the survey at the link below to identify the district admin user in your district. So, and these documents will be posted on the website once we're done with the call. So it's something you can refer back to for the actual link itself. Also, medical exemptions, you have a local exemption committee, and they must meet to approve or deny requests for absences that are medically exempt based. And also it's a local board policy, and you must provide supporting documentation. Your site user, they use the CA medical exemption window process to submit requests and upload the committee's approved absences and documentation for each student. And then the district admin user reviews the request for supporting documentation for each student's medically exempted absences to approve or deny the request. So the admin user must be a different person than the site user. So please keep that in mind. Another thing we need to talk about is your exit and dropout codes. You have to, if you enter an incorrect exit code, it's going to affect your dropout or graduation report. So please be sure you're using the right ones. Corrections will not be allowed for exits that occurred during the school year, or before the certification of the district ASR. So you need to make sure before you certify your ASR that you've got the right codes in place. And I've listed the valid exit codes below. And as I said before, this documentation will be available on our website after this call. And here's some more codes that are not dropout codes that you can utilize. And if you have any questions about these, you can contact our accountability office at accountability@sde.ok.gov or the student data info office at studentdatainfo@sde.ok.gov. Okay, the next slide is going to show you which codes are actually dropout codes, which is 1922, 1925, 1926, 1927, 1928, 1931, 3500, and 3501 and 3502. So if you have a student that's coded with any of these codes on your ASR and you've been notified, like if you've got not enrolled unknown status, you finally found out where that student has gone, please be sure and go in, update that code so it doesn't affect your dropout. Post-secondary opportunities report in the accountability reporting application replaces the post-secondary opportunity report that used to be in the WAVE in prior years. Check the coursework tab to ensure that you're submitting grades using the following steps. From the student data, click the coursework tab. Then you want to click the flat file icon at the top of the spreadsheet. Clicking on the flat file will expand the spreadsheet to show all the courses for each student. This table also allows you to check your local SIS and what your local SIS is sending as far as grades. If the grades are not showing, you're going to need to work with your vendor to ensure that they are sending those grades to us as well. Transfers. So district transfers can be extended, and that process began on May 1st. So any transfer in your queue that's not finalized by June the 30th, they're going to be deleted from the transfer systems, and those parents will have to reapply for a transfer on July 1st. So you'll need to start reporting your capacity numbers 15 days prior to any quarter, and it'll extend to 15 days after the end of the quarter. So May 15th to June 15th, you can put your capacity numbers in there.
Let's try that again. June 15th to July 15th.
I'm sorry, yeah, June 15th to July 15th. So your virtual districts all virtual district entries that have submitted transfers, that have started transfers on them, they need to be reported to us because there are requirements that ensure mobility in and out of virtual charters is no more than two transfers into a virtual charter per year. So this is a statute that actually went in place July 1st of 2021. So, and I know that we have Ryan on the call with us right now, Piper, and if you have any questions regarding transfers, if you want to ask those right now, he's here to help us answer those.
This is Dina Rogers from Moore, and in some other like accountability meetings with Kathy Dunn and some of those things, the conversation came up about K-8 dependent school districts. And as of right now, the way everything's set up, like my understanding, and somebody please correct me because I'm new to this position, but my understanding is that a K-8 dependent school district student can legally transfer to any school district that offers 9 through 12. And if that's the case, then they become an automatic for that first transfer, just like military or teacher's kit or whatever. But as of right now, that is not flagged or indicated anyway in the transfer system. Like I know of 2 dependent school districts just because of the districts I've worked in the past. I've had them that come into the district, the larger district, but I would have no way to know looking at a transfer request if it's a dependent school district or if it's a district that goes through 9 or like K to 12. Is there a way to add? Good morning.
Yes, ma'am. I don't mean to cut you off, but I
Oh, you're
do
good.
have an answer for that. That is, there is an indicator in the transfer system. It's the very last question of entering the transfer, as far as flagging it as that on the application, the paper application itself. We have added that here in the last couple of days. So heard that concern and has been addressed. And as you stated correctly, if a student resides, and this is important because they have to reside in a dependent district, okay, for any transfer approved to apply to them. If they reside in a district that does not offer the grade in which they are legally able to attend, then we would designate that on the application, designate that in the transfer system, and that will move them to the top with the other groups that you just mentioned, like the teacher students, as well as the military or foster.
Also on that, Mr. Piper, just because how we've done things in the past, like those kids are already, to be honest, if you pull my freshmen at Moore High School, I'm going to have kids from Robin Hill that are already enrolled in there. But my other concern is I've got to enroll them now, because if I don't enroll them now, like if I waited till July 1 to let them actually just enroll in our system, that is going to affect athletic eligibility big time, because the athletics run from May to May. So we've already started doing our physical night, so kids can come up, do their physical, and we're already connected for 22-23 to rank 1, so that parents can get online and fill that stuff out. Well, if a student is not enrolled with us, they will not populate into the rank 1 system. So they can't fill out the paperwork that they need to fill out to be eligible for athletics. And I did a little time in athletics, but I'm not a coach. But we have kids that miss the first day of school all the time, junior high and high school, for softball, volleyball games, because those seasons, cross country starts before school starts. They're already actually participating in district, state sponsored events. And so to have those students who really, they don't have a choice. They don't have a school for 9th grade. I just think July 1 is not fair to them. And our process is different from that anyway. So I just think that's something else that needs to be considered, because for athletic eligibility, they got to be in the system before then.
So, Dina, I was a coach, and I understand your concern. There cannot be any athletic events or competitive athletic events. There can be summer camps and things of that nature. And I certainly understand the need for a physical for those students to be able to take part in summer pride, or summer baseball, or summer basketball, or volleyball. And surely those cross-country students are running prior to that, but they're not competing in meets by July 1.
Okay.
That's not, there is no season that runs in July 1st of the summer.
Okay. Just practices. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Got it. Just want to make sure they have equal opportunity as the person who lives across the street from the school. So
100% I agree.
okay.
And they should.
Brian, there's a couple questions that a couple of people are not able to see the wait list on the portal.
Okay, now I saw that, and I think I need a little bit of clarification. Are we talking about the queue? Because I think, and Robert, are you on with us, sir?
Yes,
I may need a little backup here. Thank you. But if we're talking about 22-23, I don't think we'll be able to see those until June. Is that right, Robert?
Correct. As far as being able to enter for the next year.
And if we're talking about the queue for 21-22, those should be displayed as whoever has the question, would you mind popping on and unmuting and so I can maybe better understand?
This is Amanda Summers, and I'm going to be really honest. I am not sure how my name is attached to that question. I see it on there, like I see my name and I see the question, but I don't have anything to do with the transfers for our district. So for the Amanda Summers question, at least, that is a goblin and unexplainable. I don't know.
Well, okay, if you don't, this isn't the time to be shy. If you have a question, there's a good chance someone else does. So
can you hear me? This is Lori Kearns.
I can, Lori. Yes.
Okay. I think that, sorry, I was on the phone. I think it's popping up, Amanda, because she sent me the forward to this meeting.
Okay. That
Okay.
makes sense. Okay. I was like, I did not do that. All right.
No, you do not, but I do. And we do not have, so that underneath the superintendent's login, it has a wait list option for us. But the people who actually work in this program do not have the wait list on the drop down. Are we supposed to have access to that?
Okay, Robert, would you mind answering that? I think you'll have to
Okay.
answer that as far as extending those rights and the change, the enhancement that's been made.
Sure. And just make sure we are talking about the open transfer queue. And as of today, only superintendents have the ability to modify that status. And so you're correct. The superintendent will see that, people that are other roles will not. We are working on the ability for the superintendent to be able to designate a delegate that can perform that function, as well as a few other functions within the system.
Right.
We're looking potentially at a June 1st rollout of that capability, but as of today, only the superintendent can modify that status.
Okay, so on June 1, then I probably need to get with his login and see if it's there to designate us.
Yes, and we'll have instructions for the superintendent as well as far as how to delegate that authority.
Perfect, thank you.
Brian, can you hear me?
I can.
So I really think the question that didn't get answered is the question for the active transfer extensions.
Oh, okay.
Anybody that we put into the queue and into the transfers when the new law came into effect in January shows up in the extensions that you can approve or deny. But anybody that has been in the past is not in there. So I think our question is, say we had somebody from kindergarten and now is a sophomore, but they're not showing up in the transfer extension, but we don't want to have to fill out a whole new application. How do we take care of that?
So we were only able to go back and validate transfers up until and pull from the old system that were acted upon back to the beginning of this year. And so if we have students who are on a transfer, and my recommendation has been that we compare and contrast, do a poll of students that are actively on a transfer or on a transfer status, that should be able to be done through your student information system. That's something that prints out on the site grade summaries as far as TRT or whatever other or transfer transported or on basis of admission. That's what I'm trying to say. And then if they are not populating in the extension, I agree, they should be there. We do have, the school does have their, transfer information, and a transfer will have to be entered and approved for 21-22 for them to populate on the transfer extension. And I do agree that those students that in your scenario that you gave me was there from kindergarten to sophomore year, that student should be acted upon before we start looking at new transfers that have not been at your school district for 22-23.
Okay, so if we look at those in the past and then we are going to continue to do it, do I need to go and enter them into the new transfer portal so they will show up here? So all my kids that are currently on a transfer that have been here and we already know we're going to let them continue to stay, I need to go in and add them to the new transfer?
Yes, and that will be a one-time, if I'm understanding it correctly, that will be a one-time chore, and then they will be in the new system and be able to be acted upon from here on until they graduate.
So should we start doing that now?
Yes, the window is open to do that now.
All right, thank you.
And
Yes,
when's
ma'am.
Ryan, when does the window close on that? We were told the end of May. So we literally have half a month to enter every transfer that's been here prior to this school year.
It shouldn't be everyone. It shouldn't be everyone. It should only be those that were not acted upon or approved for the 21-22 school year. And we could not, and I'll explain a little bit, because when the transfers have a status of finalized, that some of those finalized have been denials, obviously, in the system. And in doing so, if we had brought in everything, there would be a whole bunch there that didn't need to be. And so we couldn't functionally pull in all of them that we needed to. And going back past the year, we started losing validity in that. So we did as much as we could to carry over from the old system. As far as to directly answer your question, when does that window close? Let me look. Unless Robert knows right off the top of his head.
Well, Ryan, they should be able to continue to enter transfers for the 2021-22 school year through the end of of June. So.
Okay, so they got 6 weeks then that they could act upon that. And then what about the transfer extension? When does that close?
That closes at the end of June as well. So just before we roll over to the new school year.
Okay, good question here. I do not believe you need a paper transfer form filled out by parents who were previously approved. You have all that information. We just need it put in the system. And I'm sorry that my chat disappeared. That's Lauren Santos asked that question. Good question, Lauren. For 12th graders in the extension window, they should be graduation. If they are graduating, do we click approve or deny? Great question. Robert, you wanna help me with that one? We would not be approving them for the upcoming year because they're not coming back. That makes sense.
Correct. That is a scenario that I would have to look into. Obviously, you wouldn't want to extend it, but we would need to provide some valid denial reason for it, essentially saying that, student has graduated or something to that effect. So we may need to allow you to deny, but just specify student has graduated. So we will take care of that.
There's a good question here, Robert, and I don't mean to keep defaulting to you, but this would be an enhancement that currently there's not a way to get identifiable or the STN list from the transfer system to compare to their student information system. Would it be possible for us to get an export of that information so that we can compare and contrast those two different data sources?
Okay, and so that would obviously, as you said, be an enhancement. We don't have that capability today, but we could allow districts to do an export of all of the STNs associated with student transfers in the system. So we could do that.
Okay, good.
As part of an enhancement.
All right, see a save. Leslie, to answer your question, I don't know, but my guess would be if you can't see a save button on the transfer extension page, it has something to do with superintendent rights and refers back to the delegation opportunity that Robert spoke about earlier that should be coming as of June. Right, Robert, did I say that the date right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
All of that is correct.
Okay.
Hey, Ryan,
yes, ma'am.
Debbie Samuel had a question about how do they handle students that don't have an SDN, such as people moving from out of state into a district and they want to go to another district. So
great question. And think about how much to share here. We knew from early on that this was a pain point for schools and for parents, and that's not what we want. We want it to be a one-stop shop, that I want to go to this school. And so I go there, they're able to provide me an STN number if I don't have one. And then I can handle all of my business there. Currently, as it stands, that student would still need to go to the resident school district to obtain their STN from them and then apply for a transfer after that. I want to say, and I've been saying, I realize that for anyone that I've told this before, but we are close. The unfortunate part is that, again, the folks that we have working on that can have been pulled in different directions, but we are close and to getting to that goal of having that be a one-stop shop at the parents' school of choice. Okay. Cassidy, did I answer that question for you as well? That would be Cassidy Womack.
Okay, and Carrie wants to know, was there an explanation found in an option in the denial dropdown, including invalid documentation, indicating invalid documentation?
I just sent an email, and I hope you got that email. I thought, or maybe someone else asked the question, but I did email someone back. That is certainly, so I think that's worth noting that the lack of, let me see here. Or invalid documentation is worth noting. However, I do want to make known that lack of documentation or records being sent from a school district, we shouldn't deny students based on that not being done in a timely fashion. What we should do is reach out to the school district, and then if that does not work, let's involve our regional accreditation officer and have them assist. We're really good at helping get those documents from other schools. If that is what's holding up the approval process. The invalid documentation, I struggle a little bit to think about what that would be unless
Brian,
lack of documentation is one thing, invalid documentation is another. Dina, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, like the IEP portion is a pretty big piece as
Sure.
far as when you're looking at documentation. And to be quite honest, I would also be worried as a parent and an educator about the discipline piece. The attendance, I mean, that as a district, that's a pain in the rear. But as far as safety is concerned and being able to provide services, I really think the discipline is a big piece because, I mean, we need to know that kids that we're bringing in that aren't residents here are not going to pose a safety issue for our students who have the right to go to school here. And then,
I agree.
And then I can't tell a family that, yes, you can come, and then find out later that I can't accommodate that.
That's correct. We wouldn't be able to act on that without full information that you've just discussed here. And so I agree.
I will add, I have looped Mr. Luce in a couple of times, and amazingly, a district who is notoriously slow for probably lots of us, they were really quick. So by just adding and I can't remember who it is that does the RAO for the other district, but I looped both people into the email, and I got some answers pretty quick.
We can help with that. Again, if that's what's holding us up is the collection, and by law, it's supposed to be 3 days after request. There are 72 hours that they have to respond to that. If it's not received by then, loop us in, let us help. Okay, because we don't want people waiting on information, and we don't want students waiting to be in school because of the shortcomings of adults, right?
I will also say on that, Ryan, though, in July, I don't know if that means we've got to email. We do that from, typically your records like that come from site basis. Sites won't be open July 1. I don't know very many that you can get a hold of, maybe a high school here and there. So I do think we're going to run into an issue of not being able to get records at all because people aren't working.
Well, there's always somebody to get in touch with. And obviously this is our first July going through this. And so you may be right. It may be problematic, but typically my regional accreditation officers, we have cell phone numbers. We don't have office numbers to get in touch with people. And so again, I repeat, if we're having trouble with at any point in time in the year, let me help you with that. Okay. But good question, good comments. Working down through the chat here. Cassidy said we answered that question.
Okay, for students missing STNs. So I have pre-Ks that want to enroll at another district that live here. But if I enroll them, they're not going to get an STN until July 25th, until we can send next year's data. So they won't be able to apply for a transfer until then.
I guess I'm going to have a little help here. Why would they not get an STN until the 25th? And maybe that's something Eric could help us with, or
because that's next year's data.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Because if they're enrolling for pre-K next year, that's next year's data, not this year. So it's not being sent. So they
That's
don't
correct.
get an STN.
That's correct.
So
Yep.
it would be July 25th before they could apply for an open transfer.
And
Or
because it's,
Tuesday.
and I understand the next year's data portion, and I understand that we got to get past July 1 to do that. I guess the part I don't understand is the 25th. Can you help me with that a little bit?
Like the wave is down July, that's the first day, or July 22nd. July is when the wave comes back online, and so that we can't send next year's data until then, because it will mess up this year's reporting.
That is all correct, and STNs won't be assigned in that period of time either, right?
That's true.
Okay, then that's what it is then.
So I need to contact all these people and tell them not to come the 1st, to come the 25th.
Sounds that way. That's, I don't know that I knew that before right now. So good information to have.
Okay, next one I think is Leslie that had a question about, does every transfer request need to be entered as they receive them? She said she's just been keeping her own wait list and was not going to enter them unless they've been accepted. Unless they accept them.
Well, I think that the intent behind the program and behind the law was that we would enter those applications in the order received and date received and time received, and then act upon them through the go through the filter process of attendance, discipline, and capacity, or maybe capacity first, and then the other two. So I would say yes, that we should be doing that, because if we don't, we are not getting information on that denial. And we haven't had any yet, but there is a back end of this where there's an appeal process of denial. And if we don't have that information that they've been denied, certainly that would cluster up that process. And so thinking through that, I'm going to say, yes, we should be entering them all in the date and time that is received, acting upon them accordingly.
And I would second that. It will be very important as you get to the end of the year and begin doing your certification of the data. You'll know that there is the open transfer certifications that occur at the end of the year, and you do have to verify the number of approved and denied transfers. So that information needs to be within the system.
Okay. I don't know, Cassie, if this is just a statement or what. She said for now, we're advising parents to enroll at the home district to get an STN and also enroll at the transfer district of choice. So
I will say this, as far as that's concerned, in the next week or two, I'm not real sure exactly when, because like Ryan has already said, the resource has been pulled back and forth from this project several times. However, he is making progress. We are getting closer and closer to releasing that form on the website, the application on the website, so parents won't have to enroll their students into their resident district if they have no intent of actually enrolling them and having them attend there. That I've been monitoring the progress as it goes, and it seems to be that it will be very soon. However, again, with this resource that has been taken from us several times, so I just want everybody to understand that we're pushing it, and we're trying to get this completed and in your hands as quickly as we can. Of course, we have to rely a little bit on OMES. So as soon as they finish it, it will be available to you, but I do not expect it to take until July 1st.
Cassidy asked a question here that do they actually have to attend our school to generate an STN? No, they do not. They have to enroll to get an STN. And then the next question, starting registration July 1st, won't know capacity until the end of July, mid-August. So Joseph, which school are you with, sir?
Ponca City.
Ponca City?
Mhm.
Yes, I'm with Park City.
So,
I mean, we have our schedule set in place, and we know how many teachers and how many classes we've got, but we won't know how many students we've got enrolled until the first week in August. And then, I mean, and it will change after that, because we'll have new students coming in right up until the day of school starts.
right. And right now, we're talking about resident students, correct, Joseph?
Right, so, I mean, if we're supposed to put capacity in on this transfer report online,
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how we can be accurate with that until, like, after the first day of school in August.
So I think that, obviously there are opportunities for things to change on the back end in between from one quarter to the next as it pertains to reporting capacity. I think that's true in any time of the year. I think that, July 1, what we know is that is what we have returning, or at least expecting to return. And as you stated, the amount of teachers that we have and classes that we're offering.
So basically, end of year data for that one?
Yes, sir. That very well said. Shorter than I was doing it. So well done. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, thanks.
All right, enroll them now, just to get their STN and then delete it. You can use a PK3 code that doesn't count in ASR. I think if it was for the 21-22, this is for Linda. If it was for the 21-22 school year, that's exactly what would need to happen. Specifically, if we were trying to get that student to populate on the transfer extension report. As far as the PK3 code, I think we would use whatever appropriate code is attached to that student's age and grade level. All right, they advise to enroll them in their home district and their requested district going to cause exponential ownership conflicts. I would say once the approval of the transfer happens, that conflict would go away. Eric, that's kind of a wizard question there. Did Eric leave us?
I don't think so, but if you have two enrollments, it's gonna create a conflict. But once you enroll them to get the STN, you want to delete or end date that STN enrollment. So that would essentially do away with your conflict.
Thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome.
I think
I'm
that
so
may
sorry.
be-
Can I,
Oh, hi.
could I ask a follow-up to that? This is Amanda from Broken Arrow. I asked that question about exponential ownership conflicts. So I guess in my hearing, the practice has always been, don't count them in your data until you see their eyes in your building. So,
Seat in the seat.
right. And so in light of the transfer law, I guess that norm is different. Like we should delete them out of, like deleting them out of one spot will clear up the ownership conflict in the other. So deleting them out of the portal will resolve the ownership conflict. Am I hearing that correctly?
I think we would enroll them to get them their STN and then exit them transferring immediately following that.
Okay.
Does that help, Amanda?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other, I think we've made it all the way through the chat of all the questions. If I've missed one, please let me know. I definitely want to address all of them that I can. I don't know that I have all the answers. I certainly don't. And maybe not answers that will be enjoyable, but I certainly can try.
That has to do with accountability reporting, Ryan.
Yeah, that's not my department. I'm afraid I'm not going to be very helpful with that.
I'll have to check on that for you, Terry. I don't know if that the accountability department is on this call today, so I might have to check and follow up on that with you. Jason has a question on virtual transfers to be extended for next school year.
I see that, and I'll try to answer it, but I want to leave the caveat that I'll allow Robert to kind of come behind me and clean this up. We had this question come in yesterday, and for our virtuals, that would be a continued enrollment and a continuation. It would be a continuation of that transfer, but that would be something that would be handled in our student information system and not in the transfer application. Robert, again, help me if I'm short in that answer at all.
I think you're spot on. Just I would just say this, and point of clarification just for everybody. Again, as far as the law said, basically open transfers are allowed to be extended on a year-by-year basis. It specifically said that in the law. Virtual transfers, it didn't say anything to that nature. It's basically said virtual transfers, once the initial virtual transfer is approved, then the parents are not required to reapply. There's no need to do an extension. So what we're doing within the transfer system is we're just capturing the initial transfer, just documenting the transfer. But for virtual transfers, we are not documenting the ongoing enrollment of that student in the district. So as of today, we're not doing virtual transfer extensions. We do provide that capability for open transfers, but that is specifically because the open transfer laws stated that districts would be required to provide an indication of extension of the transfer on a year-by-year basis.
Sorry to interrupt, but how does that affect, because didn't the law just, not the open transfer law, but I think it was in another law that just was approved, that we can now, because originally they had to be in one brick and mortar class.
Mhm.
Now we can take them in virtual, and we've been tasked to add that to our board policy.
Yes, that is correct, Dina.
So how
And
does-
that would not be a virtual transfer. Okay.
Okay. So
That is still
those
an
will be
open
done the same
transfer for
way.
you.
Okay. Thank you.
The open transfer, excuse me, the virtual transfer only pertains to our virtual school districts. Or yeah, I said that right. And then Lauren, your question is to clarify, dependent students do need a transfer. Yes, they do. It will be approved. It's an automatic approval. But yes, we do want to track that way that we know that those 8th graders or 5th graders or 6th graders are continuing their education somewhere. So yes, ma'am, we do want to transfer on those. Nancy, are there any other questions that I've missed or that
I don't see any more, Ryan. So if you want, we can continue with our slides. And if you want to hang on, there might be some at the end of the call.
Yeah, I'll hang out.
Okay, great. So next thing we're going to talk about is PBET, everybody's favorite. So the information is now available in the accountability reporting for fiscal year or school year 2021 and 2022. Reviewing and correcting the data for FY22. If you can see it in there now and you go in and correct it now, it's going to save a lot of time later. So the DVR process is coming soon for 2021. So once it's been completed, we will work with others within the agency to determine when the 21-22 DVR will be available for data correction as well. So it would be in the best interest of each district to review your 22 data and make sure the corrections that are needed are done now. And the corrections for FY20 or 2022 data can be made in your local SIS. So be sure.
I'm going to jump in here real quick. That's all great information. Another thing that you have to understand is summer PEBT has just been approved for this year. So by the federal government. So we will be taking, and this is how we're going to look at it. So I'm about to start pulling data for DHS for summer PEBT. So it's the qualifying, the way a student qualifies for summer PEBT. Now it's just summer PEBT, not the full year. So there's two different PEBT eligibility timeframes that we're looking at. We have the school year, and then we have summer of school year 21-22. Okay. So the school year we'll talk about in a minute, but for the summer that I'm about to pull the data for, is if they are eligible for free and reduced price lunch. That means they have a free and reduced price application on file, and they've qualified for free and reduced lunch, or they're enrolled in a community eligible school, a provision 2 or provision 3 or a site, If any of those cases are true, they will qualify for a one-time lump sum of summer PEBT. I don't know exactly how much it is, but it's a little over $300. And everyone who is that qualifies for free and reduced lunch or is enrolled in a community eligible provision 2 or provision 3 site in May of 2022. So the data right now that I've got right now in our system, okay, we will be pulling that data, and those students will qualify for that $300 and some odd summer PEBT benefit that we will be sending DHS that file soon. So everybody, want to make sure everybody understands there are 2 PEBT issuances. One is for each individual month during the school year, and then there's a summer one. The summer one is for May, free, reduced, provision 3, and CEP students, or students that are in those sites. Okay. The 21-22 school year data that you can see in the accountability reporting, you see the dollar amount, you see the number of days virtual, you can see their free and reduced status. That is where, that is what we will be using to calculate PEBT benefits during the school year. So if any of that is inaccurate right now, it needs to be corrected so that you don't have to do these corrections next year during a corrections window, and the students don't have to wait for all the corrections to be put in before they receive their PEBT benefits. I am not speaking of school year 2021 right now. I'm speaking of this current school year. Now, there will be a window open for 2021 to correct the data. The school year 2021, we will have a correction window for that in AR at some point. That is not open yet, but for now, concentrate on correcting 21-22 data. And for May PEBT, if a student that should have been RV off as a full-time, okay, virtual. For the May PEBT, virtual does not matter, okay? For the May summer PEBT, being enrolled in a virtual program does not have anything to do with it. That is only for the school year, okay? Yes, promise you, there will be plenty of training for you. This is coming out. I promise you the training, as soon as we have the accountability reporting piece available, we're going to have also 3 training modules for you guys to go through. If they're not long, they're very, very, they're very insightful. They will give you all the information you need. Promise. I've been working on them for 3 months. They're about ready to go out. All we're waiting on is the accountability reporting application to be completed. But yes, for the May PEBT, it has nothing to do with virtual, nothing. It's just based on free and reduced lunch. Okay, that's for the summer PEBT. That's all it takes to be eligible for summer PEBT. For the school year, it does matter. Virtual attendance does matter. Okay, I hope I was clear. I hope everybody understands. Yes, we've got documentation coming out. We've got training coming out. All that stuff's coming, but I want you guys to be as in the know as you possibly can be right now so that we can get this done ahead of time. Our summer PEBT is for all kids who qualify for free and or reduced price lunches, are enrolled in a community eligible program site or a provision 2 or provision 3 site. And it does not matter if they're in summer school. They do not have to be in summer school. This is a benefit for them to receive funding for meals through the summer and to help their parents out. But they do not have to be in summer school, and they do not have to be virtual.
That's just based upon their May enrollment.
It's based on their May free and reduced priced status. So I will be pulling it from student personal free and reduced price status, you know, at the end of the month. I'll be pulling that for them to go ahead and issue those benefits.
Okay, Linda's wanting to know how long she will have to ensure the 2022 data is correct.
Yeah, I'm not going to be pulling it from ASR. I'll pull it from your data, but I will pull it at the end of the month, at the end of May. At the end of May, I have to get it to DHS in the air at the beginning of June.
Okay. You ready to go forward?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you, Eric. Okay, so rollover for 22-23. The wave's going to be down July 11th through the 22nd, and it'll be up on the 25th, which is a Monday. That's why those couple days aren't in there. So prior to doing the SIF agent rollover, put your zone to sleep. If you're having issues doing that, you need to reach out to your vendor, or you can contact us at studentdatainfo@ste.ok.gov for assistance, because we can help.
No idea what we're talking about? Call us.
Yes, please. Okay, medium of instruction. It's going to begin next year, 2022-23. So each section in your student or in your system, each section should identify and include the students based upon the type of instruction they're receiving. So you might have a section that's for English, that they're in a classroom, and then you're going to have another one for virtual students. So it just gives us a way to identify how a student is receiving their instruction either virtual, in a virtual environment, or a brick and mortar environment. So your sections need to be set up to capture that data. And so that's all the slides for today. If you have questions, again, you can contact us at studentdatainfo@ste.ok.gov, or you can always go onto the OSD website under student information and documents and guides, and we've got a lot of good information there as well. These slides will be posted under that as well after we're done. Eileen, thank you. So we did have a few more questions, Ryan, on transfers. Where do I start? Okay, Cassidy wanted to know, so what would the reason be for her transfers in the queue being grayed out?
Okay, I provided a response to that in.
Oh, you did already?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I personally directed an answer to her, but essentially, and I don't mean to cut you off, Robert, I'm sorry, but essentially what we have to act, that means you have more than one student applying for a transfer in that grade, and they must be acted upon in a first come, first served basis to ungray the next one. This is done in an attempt to avoid any preferential treatment and to true up the first come, first served process. Robert?
That's just fine, just like you said.
Outstanding.
That, Ryan, I get all that. I just want to put out there, I think that will slow us getting records. It would be, because if I can't see the next kid, I don't get records in 3 days, so I have to approve them or not approve them. Well, at that point, I'm going to have to choose to deny them based off of records, because I've got to get to the next kid within 30 days. It would be nice if I could see them so that, and not be able to approve them, just view them, force me to approve them in the right order. But I need to be able to get records quicker than one at a time per grade level. Like it would help the process if we could get records requests started without having to wait till we get everything back on the prior child. Just a suggestion.
I understand, Dina. I do. I can't not think about the fact if I am, that there would be bias in place. It couldn't be controlled. Because if I know that whatever activity that my child is in, and I'm not pointing this at you, I'm just speaking in generalities, and that I have a rock star in that particular thing sitting behind somebody.
I 1000% hear where you're coming from. So on the flip side, what's my timeline? Because when it starts July 1st, we're closed the 1st and the 4th. So that doesn't even put me back till the 5th. And assuming
Right.
that people aren't on vacation and there's not hardly, pretty much nobody has access to this part of the system. So it's not like you have 2 or 3 people in your district who can actually get in there and work on this because of the limited access. So
Well,
let's say.
now, Dina, you did hear, I don't want to interrupt you, but I do want to mention, you did hear that there is an enhancement coming where that will be allowed.
Yes, I forgot. Thank you. But do I really have only 30 days to get, because I sat down and I don't have the figure sitting in front of me, but I kind of worked through it and I looked at the time frame of being off the 1st and the 4th, looking at weekends involved in that, because that's not part of your 72 hours to get your information back. I literally might be able to get through 4 or 5 first graders in a month, maybe. So, but if I only have 30 days to approve things, then it puts me in a terrible situation. I can't just take kids because I haven't had ample time to do my job and follow my district policy.
No, ma'am, I don't think anyone here is asking you to take students without
Okay.
proper documentation, number one. And number two, we are specifically saying, don't deny them because you haven't gotten records. Both of those ends would be inappropriate.
So is there
What-
a turnaround where I'm going to automatically be forced to accept a kid because they've
No.
sat in the system?
No,
Okay,
not that I'm aware of. Robert, please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, there is nothing within the system that would force that.
okay, thank you.
Okay, and then Nancy, I'm sorry, I'm lost in the
I
chat.
think we might be at where she asked how we can generate STNs July 1st through the 22nd, because the wave's going to be down. I mean,
That's a really good question. Again, we are hopeful that, actually, we're hopeful that the generator will be up at that point. We don't know that. We can't guarantee that. Eric, I don't know what the correlation between that and the wave would be. And I'm gonna need a little advisement here myself. If Eric's still with us.
it looks like he is. He might be on something else. I mean,
That's a good question. I just don't have the answer. I'm sorry.
we might have to readdress that.
Can we circle back, answer another question and maybe give Eric a little time?
Yes. Okay, Margaret's saying, Margaret had the last question. If a student is only full-time virtual for a short time, for instance, they, while they are suspended, are we required to change their schedules to send a new medium of instruction? What time frame would this be in the number of days of full-time instruction? So if a student, well, I mean, yeah, you're going to need to change it because that could affect several things. If they're suspended, you will need to change them because you're offering services. What timeline, like how many days of suspension, Margaret, are you referring to?
I mean, it can be anywhere from 1 to 2 to 20 to 40 to 50. It could be any time frame when you're talking about a suspension. I'm just wondering when we had the basis of admission code, it was easier for us to just change that code in the transfer in Power Schools transfer info. It's also enrollment for however many days they were being served full-time virtual. Now with their schedule, that's a little bit harder to do for just a short period of time.
That would involve, you would have to create an extra course. Any kid that got suspended for say 3 days, you're going to have to go into all 6 of their teachers, create a new course, a new section, and then that teacher now has to go to 2 different grade books to do grades. Also, that's a grade transfer problem going back and forth. When and my thoughts would be, if they're absent because they're sick, they still get to do their work on Canvas virtual. Like, it doesn't change their platform didn't change because they had strep throat for 3 days and they did their learning online. That's no different than if they got 3 days worth of work when they got back from 1992 before we ever had anything online. So, like, if you literally changed a suspension, a short-term suspension, it is going to create havoc on principals, counselors, teachers, students, and even on your Canvas system where all of that work is put online.
Well, I mean, you're going to have to set your sections up for virtual and for brick and mortar anyway.
Not like that. You're not, at least we don't have it that way because
You don't have it that way now, but that's what we want to see going forward is each.
But I would never have that because I, as a junior high math teacher, am not an MVA virtual teacher. I don't have virtual students ever.
Right.
When my kids are sick, they get online and do my Canvas lesson.
I understand the concern from Margaret and Dina. And let me take this back to Brian and Maria and the accountability team because they need to understand that as well. Because I can see what you're saying, that if you're having to switch schedules essentially every other day because a student, whether it be the same student or a different student, you're having to basically exit them from a section that is in person and enter them into a section that is virtual because they got suspended for 5 days or, if they were gone for 50 days, I get it. If they're gone for 150 days, okay, I get it. That's easy. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, there is a discernible difference between a short-term suspension and long-term suspension as far as the law and the requirements there, as far as changes from may to shall provide educational services. So I think we could look at something there if that's helpful.
Yeah, like if it's short term up to 5 days, I don't think you're required to provide services.
You're not.
Short term legally is up to 10 days.
Right.
Is it possible to make the distinction of like Canvas as an LMS versus something like a full virtual academy like Ingenuity or Odyssey-ware?
Yeah, I think we just need to have this conversation internally with our accountability department because they need to understand that they're asking for something that while it's understandable exactly why they're asking for it, it's also not quite that simple on your side. And they just need to understand that. And we need to figure out, is this really the way we need to go? Or anyway, I just need to have some conversations internally first.
And Michelle, as far as the DVA codes and the DVAP, those are basically for COVID. You wouldn't use those for suspension. And
honestly, if suspension was being sent by everybody, this wouldn't be an issue. Or if the discipline incident object was being sent by everybody, this wouldn't be an issue.
okay. All right, Ryan, June has a question for you.
Yeah, June, I was just typing back. Yes, I remember the discussion. And right now, this is something that we're discussing as far as the out of school suspension, change of placement and all things therein, and prior guidance and the law that applies to it. And right now we're still in those discussions. So we don't have a solid answer at this point in time. We're going to have to ask for a little bit more time. Eric, while you're still on, I need a little help with an answer on a question from earlier regarding STNs and when the wave is down. Eric, are you still with us?
I am.
Thank you.
I read it too, as Ryan. What it is that you'll still be able to process transfers through the transfer system all the way until the wave goes down, even through the wave going down, as long as they already have an STN in our system. However, if they are a new student that has never had an STN, STNs will not be able to be assigned from the 11th to the 22nd. Period. In the story, there's just not a way around that. New STNs cannot be assigned from the 11th of July until the 22nd of July. Now that may shorten, that time frame may be shortened, but the only way to roll over the system is to turn that off. I hope that answered your question, Ryan. I know it may not be the answer you were hoping for, but that's the answer.
It's the answer. As far as what I was hoping for, I don't know. I was hoping one way or another, but needed to know, as did they.
Okay, and then I think the last question we have is Amanda says we've classified this nuance as asynchronous equal virtual and synchron, or I'm not good at that. Can y'all read that question?
Asynchronous versus synchronous
Synchronous in
instruction.
person. So she's wondering if that's going to be an acceptable solution.
Like rather than changing their placement, like there are times that we have to roll a kiddo into like a distance virtual platform for maybe it's a suspension, illness, whatever. And so that's been our guide. Like if it's completely asynchronous, then we move them into medium of instruction, virtual coursework. However, if it's kind of maybe they're in and out of suspension or whatever, we move them into a platform that's the medium of instruction is still in person, because the bulk of that work, even if there is a little bit of online work through our LMS like Canvas, the bulk of the work is synchronous rather than asynchronous. So we're just wondering if rather than moving them in and out of those environments, we can just continue with our norm.
Is that option, as far as mode of instruction, is that available on all student information systems? And question for Eric, is that something that we capture in the wave?
Sorry. No, we do not really capture it, but I can see what she's saying. I think the logic is sound, but I'll have to have some conversations external to this call to make sure that logic is really what they're after. Because I can see some holes that they would try to poke in that. But again, after explaining to them all of this, the whole situation, Amanda, we'll have to come back to you. But I can see your logic there.
Okay, guys, we've kind of went over at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up for now. I appreciate everyone's participation and questions, and we'll meet again next Thursday. So be sure that if you have any other questions, make note of them now so you can ask them next week.
One question, Nancy, if someone wanted to see this recording, I see that we are, where would it be located?
It's going to be on YouTube. As soon as we're done and it does its processing, I will get it up and post it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody have a wonderful day and a great weekend. Talk to you later.
Hey, hold up. Don't close the meeting.
I'm not.